Hey, hello, everybody. It's AASLR again, and we're here with a pilot and Serena, who's she'll be here momentarily. She's setting up some things. She's here, but she's lurking. But I've got Josh, who is the pilot. Right? You're an airman,
Yep. Former pilot.
former airman. You don't fly it anymore at all.
No, I'm too
That's a
busy.
bummer. Are you?
Yeah.
Do you think you'd ever get back to flying?
I my wife wants to get me a few hours for my birthday later this month. So, yeah, I think the plans to get back in a plane later. Probably on
Sweet.
vacation.
Do you ever see yourself retiring and being one of those small prop plane owners that just retire in an airplane town kind of thing, just fly
Yes.
everywhere?
We have thought about that, but actually once our kids move out of the house, we'll probably go to like Papua New Guinea or Africa or somewhere in the middle of nowhere or Australia and fly bush planes around. Maybe Alaska.
Nice,
I know some people who've done that. So yeah.
exciting. So, what does a pilot know about cybersecurity?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So
You got a lot to tell us, right?
I used to fly C-130s for the Air Force. And then some life stuff happened. My wife was also a pilot. We had kids. She got out of the military for some medical reasons, and I got the opportunity to find a new job in the Air Force. And they made me a cyber warfare officer.
Cyber
So,
worker officer,
cyber warfare.
cyber
Yeah.
warfare. Okay.
Yep.
You want to know a funny story?
So I,
I'll tell you in a minute. Can you hear me?
yeah,
We hear
we
you
can hear you,
now.
Serena.
All right. Yeah, no, I had a cyber slot for the Air Force, and
Ooh.
then I was like a semester away from commissioning, and then I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and then they they medically separated me. So
Oh,
yeah, I tried.
nice. Where were you at?
Oh, since I was in ROTC because it was
Gotcha.
just to like commission
Yeah.
after I graduated. So I did like a few years of that and I had a slot for cyber.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was like my last semester and which
Oh man.
sucked. But
Yeah,
I think it ended up working out for the best though.
that's cool. Nice. Yeah. There's a lot of really cool people who have like started down the path. Like John Hammond's very similar. He was all
Yeah.
ready to go. And then they're like,
Yeah.
no, that's okay. Different story, but yeah, similar-ish.
Yeah.
Nice. So I were you looking forward to doing cyber in the Air Force? Or were
Yeah.
you going Air Force or Army or
It was Air Force. Yeah, like my cadre, well, he was like a lieutenant colonel, was a cyber operations officer, which was cool for me because I get to like pick his brain about a lot of stuff. But
yeah.
like the thing that I wanted to do and learn
Mhm.
was offensive,
Yeah,
but those slots are small,
they
right?
are.
They didn't you kind of have to be like the best of the best to get those slots.
Mhm.
Um, so I didn't know if that's what I would end up doing or not. But I wanted to basically get the security clearance and then just kind of
Mhm.
have that as an option, like when I got out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
hmm
Do you having seen at least the part that you've seen, would you recommend it to people who like want to get into cybersecurity to go like ROTC or go military?
Do you want my honest opinion?
Yeah, of
I
course.
would discourage probably everybody from joining the military.
That's what I say too.
What?
Which is that's also what I say most of the
Yeah,
time.
it's mainly I'm coming from like a perspective of having a ton of friends that ended up commissioning. All of
Mm-hmm.
them hated it. All of them just did not end up like super happy with the roles that they got, or
Yeah.
just like different things like that. And like coming from like a woman's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I have like a lot of like women friends that I hear like horror stories from. And that's kind of why I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
No. I.
things work out the way that they should for me anyway. Like I kind of was like, yeah, whatever. But now I'm just like, I would probably discourage people from going that route, to be completely honest.
Whenever someone asks me like, "Hey, should I join the military?" my bet is that they're already thinking about doing it, and no matter what I say, they're probably going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
Cool. But if people ask, I'm like, nah, there's other ways. There's other ways
Yeah.
to do this.
I understand that like a lot of people feel like their options are limited. And that's honestly like kind of what the military is hoping for, is to get these kids that have limited options. But yeah, there are far more now than there was like years ago. So yeah.
My plan was to be a fighter pilot when I was in high school, and then I've got 6 brothers, so I knew there wasn't like any family money for college. So I was like, how do I go to school and how do I become a fighter pilot? Someone's like, hey, have you heard of the Air Force Academy? And so I did that route. It worked.
It is a good way, but I don't know how long your contract was, because I had like ended up scoring high on the officer. We don't take the ASVAB. It was like an officer training or officer test. But I ended up scoring high on the pilot stuff, which I was like, I don't know how that happened. So they wanted me to do it, but I was like, there's no way I would sign a 10-year contract. Like not even for $1 million when I signed a 10-year contract. But for someone who is passionate about flying, I could see the appeal of that for sure.
Oh yeah. I got out 2.5 years ago, but my pilot training commitment just got up at back in April. So for me, when I stopped flying, they're like, oh, we need people with experience who've been around for a while to be in cyber. I was like, okay, sure, why not? I'll finish out my commitment because I still have pilot training commitment. And then I'll go do something else, probably go see if I can get in an airline. And so I went, and I was probably like your friends, I went and worked at the first Special Operations Communication Squadron as a IT manager. Not really cyberish. After learning how to do like some cyber stuff, and then I kind of hated it. It was staff meetings and status updates. And so I tried to get out of cyber, went to the special operations school and started teaching stuff that wasn't cyber. And then I didn't have enough experience in cyber to become a major. And so I got passed over twice. And then they said, oh, okay, well, you can go now. Well, you have to go now. So with commitment left. But it worked out. And then when I was getting out, I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. I figured I would just go be a program manager somewhere. But that kind of leads into what I wanted to, like what I talk about and what I put out on LinkedIn is how to actually get a good job, because I have no idea. So I got onto a Operation Code Slack channel and ran into a bunch of people who my wife had gotten out, and she started getting into coding and learned JavaScript and React, and was part of that Operation Code community. And she's like, people talk about cybersecurity on here. You could probably find people who have jobs. So I went and checked it out and ran into Stefan Semmelroth, who was a recruiter, and connected with him. And he's like, hey, learn this. Go grab yourself an internship during like the last little bit that you have in the military. And there's this thing called Skill Bridge for people who are in the military. And I went and worked with 6th Gen, who's in Maryland here. They're a pen testing company, and learned a ton. And then that helped me land a job teaching, because I knew how to teach and I knew a little bit about cyber, teaching as a contractor for the military. Ironically, I ended up teaching a course that John Hammond had written. And awesome. So got really, really good at teaching the same thing over and over again. So like Python buffer overflows are in my head. Real skills, like how to actually do a pen test, like I know basics and I can do those over and over again. So I rolled from that job into I started meeting people in communities, which is another thing I like is hugely helpful. It started with Operation Code, and then found out about VetSec, got plugged into cyber insecurity and Simply Cyber with like Neil Bridges and Gerald Dozier. And then Jerry introduced me, or I don't know, at some point I got introduced to Black Hills and just found like tons and tons of resources. And it's kind of, once I started finding these resources, I decided to start sharing them. And some people on Facebook were a little interested, but it's, you know, friends from high school and college and whatnot, and family members. So they weren't all that interested. And then I found LinkedIn and really built out my stuff on LinkedIn. And people there were hugely interested in cybersecurity resources. So all the things that I had initially learned, basic networking, Windows and Linux internals, how websites work, how email works, some protocols, some services, and then like the security basics. I had learned all those back in cyber school, hadn't really used them very much, but tag that with then some skills that I learned during my internship and my time at DeSita, and a bunch of free resources people piled my way, and started sharing that back out in LinkedIn posts. And that's how I recommend most people get started. There's some basic pathways that a lot of people talk about in cybersecurity, since cybersecurity often grew out of like network engineering or IT. A lot of people say start there. Start with the basics of what a computer is and how networks work, and then get into the security aspects. And you can do that. And that's what is fairly straightforward. If you're not sure even where to start, John Strand's SOC Core Skills course is pay what you can. It can be free if you need it to be. And it covers a lot of that, almost all of that. There's also Professor Messer videos and Jason Diaz videos. Ian Neal has written a book on Security Plus and has a bunch of free Security Plus training on his securityplus.training website. And then if there's networking basics that people need, David Bumble or Network Chuck have some great stuff. And there's just tons and tons of websites that cover a lot of that. Serena, if I could, how did you pick what job you wanted in cybersecurity?
Well, I started off in networking. So my undergrad is in computer information systems with concentration on networking and information security. But when I was first going through college, there wasn't really a lot of programs that were like cybersecurity degree offerings.
Right.
It was kind of like right about when I was getting ready to graduate, did all of those like cybersecurity courses and degree options pop up.
Yeah.
So I did networking, and then, you know, after college, I kind of was put in a pickle a little bit because I had a plan to be a cyber operations officer for the Air Force.
Right.
But then that fell through, and I was like, I didn't really think about, like, you know, in the private sector, like what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go specifically. But I ended up getting a job at Cisco and being a network engineer there, doing support. But I've always had an interest with security. And then, you know, when I started posting on TikTok, a lot of my content was like jokes and then networking and then and cybersecurity, just kind of like whatever I'm interested in at the time. That's what I post about. Like whatever I'm learning about, that's what I post about. And then, you know, I knew I wanted to get more into security because networking, I like it. It ends up being like a little repetitive and I get bored quickly. So yeah, so then I took kind of like a year just to kind of figure out, like, explore different like security positions, talk to a bunch of people and figure out like what exactly I wanted to do as far as security goes, and ended up at Black Hills for being a pen tester and content creator.
Yeah. Nice. Did you use the NIST NICE framework at all?
No.
When you were like researching?
No.
I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and I've when I was at DeSita, I actually built a training needs assessment right when the pandemic hit. Courses stopped. They weren't set up well for virtual training. And so I did my spreadsheet magic on the NIST framework and knowledge, skills, and abilities. And it's all right. It really works well for the government to say, like, what is this job? For everyone else, it may or may not fit. Because there's a couple different roles in the NIST framework that might be a pen tester. There's a couple roles that might be a SOC analyst, but it's not like a exact thing. Because what is a pen tester? Like, are you doing external scans or internal? Like, are you doing web app or Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Um,
It really that is hard, and that has a similar problem with networking. When people are looking for networking jobs, it's like, well, if you're going to be a network engineer for a city, it's going to look probably very different than if you are a network engineer for Facebook, right?
yeah.
So it's like, what is that and what does that mean? And you really have to like kind of dive in, look at job postings, talk to them like when you're going through the interview process. For me, as far as pen testing, I prefer web app or sometimes internals kind of come a little naturally to me just because I have a lot of experience in different networks, especially from working at Cisco. I was in hundreds of people's different networks. So that kind of gave me like really good experience. But it really depends on, I guess, the pen testing company and like what's needed. So maybe someone's like, oh, we have a ton of externals. Some people can do both, or all externals, internals, web app. But from my perspective so far, it seems like people are either focused on internals, externals, or web app mainly.
Yeah, that seems to be like the breakdown a lot of organizations use. So there are a ton of jobs out there, and I get hit regularly by people who are like, I don't know, like I want to get into cybersecurity, and I say, okay, what job do you want? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, I just want to get into cybersecurity. There's a lot of jobs out there. I know Neil Bridges and Gerald Ozier did like a joint video a few months ago where they went through like the top 15 hot jobs in cybersecurity, and both of them have been CISOs at different times. Gerald's always been like an auditor and on the GRC side more. Neil's been a pen tester for years and was a pen tester in the Air Force. He actually helped build out the school down at Hurlburt for the advanced training. And so they had some great insights into the different roles. Neil also built out a SOC at one of his past jobs. Hey, Brian. But if you're new and you're not sure what jobs there are out there, there's a bunch of different places to look. Lockheed Martin has a quiz based off of like your personality and how you might feel in a few different situations. It points you to a couple different cybersecurity roles. Try Hack Me actually has a quiz for it kind of takes you to like the red blue analyst side. CyberSeek has a quiz as well and a lot more information. It kind of follows that NIST framework, so it's a little clunky, but there are places to start and get an idea for what roles are out there. Serena mentioned it really well. Looking at job descriptions, go out on LinkedIn, go out to Indeed, and put in like jobs that you're interested in. I've heard Jason talk about this. Some jobs have multiple titles. So you could be a SOC analyst, you could be a SOC 1, you could be a SOC engineer, you could be a vulnerability analyst. Vulnerability analyst could be in a SOC or could be a pen tester. A lot depends on what that job is, what they're actually looking for in the job description. Because two companies could have that same name and mean different things. So you really want to look at what they do in those roles. There's also some organizations out there. A Whole Human Cyber Initiative is a couple of my friends. They're primarily on LinkedIn, but they've got a Discord server as well where they're taking people through a whole path. So they've got they've collected donations and they have some scholarships that take people through learning what jobs you want and then getting a few different certifications and mentorship along the way as you work towards actually getting into a cyber role. Kip Boyle, I've been working with him for the Wild West Hacking Fest mock interview or resume reviews and mock interviews. We did Way West, and we're going to do Deadwood with Frank Victory and Neil Bridges, if he's feeling all right. But Kip and Jason Diaz have a podcast all about getting into cybersecurity, where they cover different roles and things to talk about. And I listen to it and get some info that I pass along. The longer I've been in cybersecurity, the more I've learned that there's not a right path. Brian Godfrey's on this call, and I feel like he's a great example of like there is not a direct path. You could have been a Coast Guard radio operator and a truck driver for years and decades and still have a place in cybersecurity working at a SOC. It all comes down to actually like getting yourself in the door. So with that, and online communities, if you're here, if you're listening to this, then perfect. You're in the right place. There are people here who want to help you, including me and the others here. If you're not following Serena on TikTok, highly suggest it. It's at least entertaining, but it's also super informative. But join these communities, be active. There's a Discord server for Black Hills, now just the Infosec Discord server. Ask questions. I've mentioned a few others, Simply Cyber Insecurity, great communities of people, Cyber Mentor Dojo. It's run by JJ Davies. He's a great guy. He's got some great insights and a really useful community there. I could go on and on. I post a lot of these on my LinkedIn in my featured posts. So if you're ever like, Josh said a thing, it's on my LinkedIn. I just repeat the same stuff over and over again. Oh, hey, thanks, Ryan, for posting that. So if you finally know what job you want, you've got an idea, and you know some of the basic information, then the trick becomes how to actually get a job. And that's often what people ask me. They've got a few certs, they've got some training. Highly agree. Thanks, Brian. Reach out to people in the field, and they're often going to be helpful and supportive. People in cybersecurity tend to be supportive. Our role is literally to support and help people. So we tend to do it in our personal lives as well. But what will get you a job? I'm currently a sales engineer, which is a fun role for me. It's like teaching, but it's also selling things. And I just get to talk all day. But what I've learned is if you're selling a brand. And when we're trying to get jobs, we're selling ourselves. Someone wants to pay us money for the things that we can do. But they don't know what we can do unless we market ourselves and show them what we can do, right? Serena, you started She Networks TikTok before you started at Black Hills, right?
Yeah, like I started 2020, probably like August or like summer of 2020, I think is when I started posting on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Did you do it for like a greater purpose, or was it like, hey, I've been learning some stuff and I don't know, want to try out this TikTok thing and share and see where it goes?
I honestly really didn't have a plan for it at all. It was more just like, I don't know, like if you were just to like download Instagram and start posting Instagram stuff, and then it kind of took off a little bit.
Yeah.
It was more just like a personal account that just had like, I talked about tech stuff. I really before then I wasn't like a content creator at all. I didn't have blogs or anything like that. So it kind of just like happened because I just wanted to like make some jokes. And so yeah.
Nice. Would you say that helped you get your pen testing job with Black Hills?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think I've gotten like so many opportunities, not just at Black Hills, which I believe, because Jason and John know me from the content that I create, and which, they're obviously interested in because they also do community and content stuff. But, you know, even outside of Black Hills, like I would just get so many like emails and DMs of people at different companies offering me like opportunities or different job openings and things like that, which is fantastic. It's great. And that's why I encourage people, like, even the other day I was tweeting about like the internet runs off obscure blogs. So like if like I want people to make blog posts even if they're like, oh, I don't know who this is like gonna be. This is super niche. But I'm like, when I'm Googling things trying to fix or troubleshoot stuff, I end up on these like very obscure blogs that like end up giving me the answer that I need, you know?
Right.
So you never know who ends up, you know, kind of in your sphere when you start putting out content and like contributing to the community.
Nice. That was exactly what my recommendation was going to be, is start putting yourself out there. It doesn't need to be Instagram or TikTok. Though if that fits your style, like go for it. I posted like 2 things on Instagram. It's just I prefer LinkedIn. I can like long form. I can like just stream of consciousness. I'm sure I could do it in like an TikTok. I do it enough in front of a camera that it might sound like something someone would want to listen to. But put yourself out there in a place that people who are interested can learn something from you. So if you are learning, which we should all be learning, that's also one of like the keys of cybersecurity. If you want to be good at this at some point, we're all bad at it at some point, and you have to learn things and try things and be bad at them until you actually get good at them. So sharing that journey in a vlog, in a blog, on social media, having a Discord's or a GitHub account where maybe you've got write-ups or things that you've built or collections of things that you're playing with. That can be really, really helpful for actually showing people that you know how to do things. I've got a very bad video. Like Ryan would laugh if he watched it because it's very low production quality. It's before I had these lights and back when I had a heavy headset. Very bad quality buffer overflow walkthrough. And I've got the code up on GitHub. I totally stole it from someone else, and I gave a credit where it's due. But I took a Python 2 buffer overflow and wrote in Python 3 because that's what we do now is Python 3. And that got me out there. I literally did a 10-minute like teach someone buffer overflows to Neil Bridges during my INE interview. Neil had already known me. He was pretty sure he wanted to hire me, but he just had to see like, hey, on the spot, teach me something. And so I pulled something out of a hat that I knew how to do. But he already knew it. He'd seen my video. He'd seen my GitHub. So make things easy for people. Make them easy to know who you are, what you're about, and how to hire you. That's branding. So like most people, when I showed up to this job, hopefully Rosalind's watching, some of my coworkers are like, "Oh, hey, you're Josh. You did those videos." Or like, "You're LinkedIn famous." I was like, "I don't know about that." I just share a bunch of stuff over and over again on LinkedIn, and it goes places. People will know about you, and if it's good things, hopefully it's good things that can help in an interview process. I've heard it from Neil and Kip and a lot of people who have been hiring managers. When you have an open position and you need to bring someone on board, it can be such a pain in the butt. Going through tons and tons of resumes. You've only got so much time in the day. You've still got a job to do. Your job's actually probably harder because you need people to be working and you're kind of covering that role until it's filled. So often you can be really busy. So you get a resume, you get like an application, you're going to skim it real fast and be like, this either fits or it doesn't fit. And if you get hundreds of them, then you're going to go really, really fast until it'll be like, no, maybe, no. So make that easier for people by making your resume easy to read and focused on the things that they're asking for. This is something that I've seen from Neil and Jerry and Stefan and Kip and Jason Blanchard. If you're going for a position and there is a job description on LinkedIn or the company's website or Indeed or wherever, you want that job. If it asks for skills or just an overview of like, hey, we want a person who can do these things. If you could do those things, copy the sentence out of the job description, find the right place in your resume, whether it's in like the summary or in a specific role that you filled, and plop it right there. If it's like their summary for their job and it perfectly describes you, take it, put it in your summary, make sure that it is accurate. Like, you don't want to misrepresent yourselves, because that's a good way to like ruin your reputation, because the community is small and people talk. But if it does fit you and you're just like, I don't know how to put me in the right words for this job, like, they did it for you. Take their words, put it in your resume. Then you want to sell yourself. So a lot of applications or a lot of resumes are going to go through an ATS, an applicant tracking system. And I found out that my most recent resume is not Bamboo friendly. It was in a PDF, but somehow when it went through the system, formatting shifted, and like ISC squared with a hyper scripted 2 for my SysP somehow became like weird symbols. I don't know how it happened, but it's one of those things that like now I know. So I got to figure out that formatting. If you have tables, if you have graphics, if you have multiple colors or weird fonts, ATSs don't like those. And also, we get used to reading Arial or Times New Roman or just different fonts on a regular basis looking at a screen. If you pick a font that isn't what people are used to, it's likely not going to be visually appealing to them, and they're probably not going to enjoy reading it. If people don't enjoy reading it, then it's going to leave, even if you're the perfect fit, but somehow your resume leaves weird feelings with them. That could be like the difference between like you as a perfect fit and someone else who's also really close as a perfect fit. And I've actually gotten to like the end of some interviews and found out that like I was really close, but they went with someone else. And that happens too. That's perfectly normal. But make your resume something that the hiring manager wants to read. Kip talks about a resume being like a newspaper. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've held like a physical newspaper, but you throw the right headline at the top that gets people to be like, oh, this sounds like an article I want to read about. Like, what different ways could you put a headline that talks about like the Queen just passed and there's a new king in England? Like, pick a headline that makes people be like, oh, okay, like I knew that, but like, why do I want to read this article? Maybe something clickbait. Do it properly. You also don't want people to be like, I don't like this guy. Again, small community, people talk, and you don't want to be that guy. So, or that girl. So something gets attention. When you get to your summary, you don't want to bore them, but you do want to show them that you are the right fit for the role. Short, sweet, to the point. Then get into your education. If it's this is a geographic thing. I know in Central and East Asia, putting your education up top first thing is really important. In Europe, a CV and not your job experience is usually more important. If you're a fresher, I think that's the right term. In a lot of places, then they want to see your education and your certs more than they want to see your skills or like your previous roles. In the United States, though, it is most common to put like your career summary, like what roles you've held and what you did at those roles, in the most recent to the earliest. So reverse chronological order. It's like the job you are either in right now or the job you just got out of, and then moving down the line from there. Often, if your previous jobs didn't align with the kind of role you're going for now, like I was a lifeguard in high school, and then after high school, I installed AV equipment, like home automation stuff, back when plasma TVs were new, and a 50-inch HDMI cable was like $1,000, and you could only like special order them. Yeah, like 18 years ago. I don't put that on my resume. Nobody cares. Like, cool story, Josh. It doesn't have like a great spot on my resume. I was a pilot. I did that for 7 years, and I have like 2 bullet points in there, and they're more about what I did as a like safety officer, handling secure and confidential information, and then just generally to fill the space so that people go from like, you graduated and then you had this role, like, what you do in there? It's like, oh, I was a pilot and I was in charge of like $50 million aircraft with 5 people on board and 150,000 pounds. So like, that's about it. That's how much I cover about being a pilot. And then I talk about my other roles that usually apply more to current jobs. If you did something that does apply, maybe you were the IT go-to person, but you were like in accounting. Maybe you were a developer building websites, and now you want to be a GRC analyst. Well, there's probably stuff in there where you could like pull out that does fit. And that's, again, going to the job description, looking at the different skills and experience that it might be looking for, and being like, oh, hey, I've got a story for that. Grab the thing out of the job description, put it in your resume in place of a bullet. When you build out bullets, there's a great way of hitting it. Some people say STAR. I can never remember what STAR talk means, but it comes down to what, now what, so what. Totally stole that from Neil. What did you do? Just the basics, like developed a course. Okay. Or now what? Or so what? Why did that matter? What was the course about? Oh, it was an entry-level penetration testing course that was like the crux of this career path and reached, 1,000 students a year. Now what? And it's helped raise revenue for the company like $1 million this year. Boom. There's a good now what? Like, why did it matter? Because then when you get over to like your new company, like, what value are you bringing to me? You are an investment. You are something that they are paying to get. You are a product, and they have a need, but you also need to fit. There's supply side and demand side, right? High school economics. You need to boost your supply side as much as you can, and maybe build off of their demand side. If they're asking for a thing and you fit that thing, target that, and you make it a lot easier on yourself. Hope you like my supply demand curves. But skip fluff and keep your resume short. I've been doing stuff for like 18 years this month, since I got out of high school. And I still try to keep my resume down to 2 pages. There's nonprofits that I've started that they may or may not fit on my resume. There's roles. My wife and I started a bookkeeping company. We were landlords and started, we had like 4 rental properties. Those, I'll put them on LinkedIn in case people, want help with that stuff, which is usually like, don't get into it. But I don't put them on my resume because it doesn't necessarily apply, and I can better use a space for other things. Degrees and certifications is kind of one of those last pieces, and a lot of people think it should be one of the first things we talk about. Identifying what job you want in cybersecurity and figuring out the job description and what you're looking for will help drive kind of what you want to do with degrees and certifications. So I know a lot of people who are in cybersecurity who don't have degrees, and that's perfectly fine. Then there's some of us, like, I've got a bachelor's of science in humanities with a minor in Russian and philosophy, like 2 separate minors, and an MBA. They help me know things about the world, but like, they are not like Serena's degrees, like networking and information security, like that fits a lot more, and that can likely help a lot more. But truth be told, the roles I'm going for, they don't care. Like degrees would have been so long ago. Instead, they're curious, what have I been doing now? How have I been adding value to companies now? What am I putting out that they can look and be like, oh, okay, this guy knows things and he can be valuable to our organization. So if you are starting out, degrees never hurt. Okay. Expensive degrees do hurt. Expensive degrees are something that you will carry around with you for a long, long time. I know people who are 30 years into their career and have just now paid off student loans, and they're going to retire in a long, long time. My wife and I both went to the Air Force Academy, which is a free Ivy League quality school based on what people say. I thought it was good. And it's free. But then you have to do at least 5 years in the military. That was fine for me. I wanted to be in the military. I wanted to be a pilot. It was hugely successful for me. Would I recommend it to everyone else? Not necessarily. You heard Serena earlier. Even jumping into the military and cybersecurity doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do anything cool. I know plenty of people who are in the military, who were recently in the military, who did cool stuff, but man, it's hit or miss. And I know someone who just did a really cool tour down at Fort Bragg, working for a special unit, and now he's not. And I don't think he'll do anything that cool ever again, but he did it for a few years. Brian, what are my views on boot camps? And Brian knows, and people who've been following me on LinkedIn know that I am not a huge fan of boot camps. I feel like the ROI just isn't there. There are some boot camps that are quite useful. And they're not coming to the top of my head. So if someone really wants a good boot camp and you're listening and you're curious, I will go and find them later and I'll post about it on LinkedIn. But I feel like often it's not worth it. If it costs more than a car just to get Security Plus, maybe CEH, and then get placed in an entry-level role, we can get you there faster, cheaper, and there's better ways. If you need someone to kick you in the butt and a couple times a week, meet you in person virtually during a boot camp and walk you through learning stuff, okay, cool. There's also community colleges. I just got the catalog for the local community college here, and for $300 you can take a course on Security Plus, and it meets a couple times a week, and it's run by a guy who's a CISO nearby, and we're in Maryland. So if he's a CISO nearby, he's probably knows all the other NSA, Cybercom people.
I would definitely agree with that too. My take on boot camps, I don't know. I just, you were saying, return on investment. But I would say go to a community college and actually get college credits for your money that eventually could either be transferred into another degree program if you wanted to do that. Cause let's say you went to community college, paid for those credits. But then you got hired at a company, which is great. But a lot of these companies might even offer to pay to finish your degree, and then you can transfer those community college credits into a 4-year degree program.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth more for your money.
Right.
And some of these, I know, I go to SMU for my master's, and they have cybersecurity boot camp, and I think you actually do get college credits for that.
Yeah.
So that might be something different, but actually getting credits from a accredited school, I think is probably worth more than just a random startup boot camp something.
Yeah.
So
my push is always for people to know that there are options and to do the option that makes the most sense for them. I think of some people I met in the military. I knew a couple Army guys. I dragged them around Afghanistan one day, and they took the longest way to move, 50 miles. But they were telling me they had no other choice. They were buddies from Ohio, and they were National Guardsmen, and they were on this deployment. they were in front of a judge. And the judge is like, you've got two options. Like, you can go do 10 years in jail, or you can join like the National Guard and deploy like next month. And they loved it. And I haven't heard from them since, but sometimes you don't have a lot of options. If a boot camp is the only way that you're going to like get your stuff in gear, getting gear, and move into the job that you want, cool. Go rock it. Also know that there's a ton of other resources and there's other people who are willing to like help you along the way. You don't have to like have everything in that one bucket just because you paid for it and are doing a boot camp. Like, you can still use for your resources. You can still use all the rest of us to help out. Love to do that whenever I can. Yeah, there are tons of free resources. Obviously, Antisyphon Training, I'm a huge fan. I know many people like Brian Godfrey over here, who has used that training to actually land a job. Ironically, right back with Black Hills, because Brian, what'd you do? You made a vlog, you made a blog, you volunteered, you posted over and over and over again about the training that you did, and you participated in a ton of training. You were on Neil's streams and Jerry's streams and Jax's streams, talking to people in the community and becoming known and sharing what you knew. Sorry, I'm a big fan of Brian. He was one of my interns at Cyber Supply Drop. Often I run into people who are not freshers, are not, college grads, are not, we might, at the beginning of their overall adult careers. A lot of people have been doing something else for a while, and I can relate to that. Switching into cybersecurity out of like flying, and my class had 3 missileers, 2 cops, and then a bunch of just second lieutenant college grads. But there were a lot of us who, even in the military, had transferred from other jobs into cyber. And guess what? You have transferable skills. If you've been working with a computer for a while and you're just trying to get into cybersecurity, you probably have an understanding of like at least some security basics. And if you follow a little bit of that, you're going to learn that like, oh, okay, I do understand how these things work. But the skills that you have, if you've been around for a while, are just life skills of communicating with people. Anyone who's worked like McDonald's or Chick-fil-A that I know personally, like my little brothers or my uncle or my aunt, a lot of them took skills from just being at the teller and talking to people regularly and having to like orders get mixed up, or you're like rushed and harried and you have to work alongside your colleagues and you have to make people happy and give them what they want. You learn a lot about like communication, teamwork, and empathy in a business situation. And those you take with you forever. Hey, Kim. The same thing can be true about almost every job that we do. If you've worked with other people before, if you've worked in certain technologies before, and you're getting into cybersecurity now, maybe you were hospitality or marketing for a hotel chain, and now you're getting into cybersecurity. Well, you know how to communicate with other people. You know how to work alongside other people. You probably know how to do project management and like Trello boards and a lot of those things that like even people who are skilled in cybersecurity might not be skilled in those pieces, in those aspects. And you can use that to build up a team even better. So, yeah, that's the last thing I kind of wanted to cover with is if you are transitioning and you're closer to my age or you're a little older than me, and you're just starting out in cybersecurity, know that everything that you've done in the past can help you in overall helping your career. And you don't necessarily have to start at the beginning. I have recommended to some people of grabbing a help desk job. If you have no IT experience, but you've been doing something else for like 20 years. One of my buddies, Ryan, was a weatherman in the Air Force. And he had started out in IT like in the first couple of years of his career, and then he did 18 years as a weatherman, giving weather reports to pilots before they flew, or like helping the mission plan. He didn't want to keep doing that. He wanted to get into cybersecurity. And I said, you might make some connections and get a little ways if you were to like work in the help desk nearby. Not for long. He did it for a month. Met someone there, got hired because it was contractors, met other contractors, and then he got hired into a cybersecurity role and like doubled his pay in like a month. But he wouldn't have gotten there if he hadn't done the job initially. Being a system admin, being a network admin, even just working nearby cybersecurity people. If you were a marketer and you want to get into cybersecurity, go be a cybersecurity marketer. If you were in sales and you want to get into cybersecurity, see if you can go work for a cybersecurity company. One, the money is pretty good in sales and cybersecurity, in my opinion. But also there's a lot that like you're going to pick up from your day-to-day job. And you can do cybersecurity sales without knowing cybersecurity. I work alongside a guy who just got out of the Navy. He is amazing, but like he is working towards a Sec Plus. I work alongside someone who was with Splunk, and she's amazing, but she doesn't have Sec Plus, and it's fine because she's great at her job. She can sell. She knows products. She knows what like how to relate to customers and what the businesses need. And through that, though, she's picked up tons and tons about security. And like, if she wanted to move into another cybersecurity role and out of sales, she totally could. But she doesn't have that traditional cybersecurity background. She doesn't. Anyways, there's a lot of options out there, and I just want people to know that those are, possibilities. I've been trying to keep up with chat and questions. I recognize a lot of people out here. But are there any other questions?
Did you get Brian's question about the wide range of learning?
I think I saw it and missed it. Should you take a wide range of learning and find your fit, or just decide this is what I am going to do? Thanks, Brian. I recently made a post about this on LinkedIn. There's a couple different ways of learning, and my wife homeschools our kids, and I've been teaching for like the last like 4 or 5 years before I did sales engineering, which I'm still doing a lot of teaching. And so we've talked about like a lot of educational basics and how people learn. And there's traditional methods of like prescribe, like learn this, then learn this, then learn this, then learn this. And it usually works for people. There's some better ways of like chopping up your learning and just following what interests you at the time. So like, if you're like, oh, I want to learn pen testing. Okay, cool. Go to Try Hack Me and just start on the path. And you're going to like run into things where you're like, I have no idea what this means. And you can then dive deep into, okay, well, what is the background on that? What does it mean? How does it relate? And follow it that way. And it's not going to be like as prescribed. It's going to be a lot on you to just follow your own research and find the pieces and parts and training that aligns. And that is now doable with virtual training. If like you wanted to go to Try Hack Me, there's pathways, but there's also just tons of rooms, and there's not an order that you have to complete things. Same with like Antisyphon Training. If you're like, oh, this is really interesting, I want to learn about canary tokens and deception. It's like, okay, well, take that webinar or take that course, learn about that. And then like they talked about a bunch of stuff that I don't know. Okay, well now we'll go take this training over here. If you are making money and you have a job and you can do that, awesome. Or once you get into your job and you want to build things out and grow your skills, that is also an awesome way to go about things. But the traditional start here, grow from there, it tends to work, and it's where the resources usually lie. Serena, is there anything that I talked about that you were curious about, or that anything that I hit on that sounded strange to you?
No, I mean, there was something that you had mentioned earlier just about you have to be bad at something before you can be good at it typically. And I feel like I'm going through that right now because I'm trying to like, well, one, transition into a pen testing role, and then two, do YouTube when I'm like so used to TikTok. And I know that's kind of like a silly comparison, but you know, it's like I'm like, dang, I feel so bad at YouTube because I've been doing TikTok for so long. And TikTok kind of was almost felt like a clean slate where there's like all these different like technical content creators on YouTube, but there really wasn't very many content creators in the techno space on TikTok when I started.
Yeah.
And stuff like finding like my own style on TikTok, I think was like way easier than doing it on YouTube because it's like, oh, like you kind of stop yourself. You're like, why would I write a blog about this when there's already a blog about this or whatever? And sometimes it's just like about finding your own style or like the way you like to do it or, you know, whatever. So yeah, it's just like I'm kind of in that same thing right now where I'm just like, oh, I don't want to be at the bad part. Like I want to be good at this already.
You automatically compare yourself to everybody who's already out there and the people that you see that exactly. Oh, they're doing really good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, because it's like, well, I look at like John Hammond and Network Chuck and David Bombal, who's like been doing this for so long, and like also I'm comparing to people that like have teams of people that help them with like editing and content creation versus like me. So I'm like, all right, I have to, I don't know. Sometimes it's about like figuring out like your own style and not even just like content, you know, but everybody's different. You're not gonna like replicate someone that already exists. Like maybe you might write a blog about something there's already a blog written about, but you know, do it in your own words and how a way that you would understand it. Because even sometimes like with like CPF write-ups, there's some that I'm like, all right, this makes no sense, but then I'm like, if I figure it out, I'm like, oh, I'll write the write-up so that what would make sense to me, and then maybe it will like resonate with somebody else, you know.
Oh my gosh, yes. I love that.
Yeah.
I think back to like try hack me rooms where I'm like, oh, this is hard. Like do my write-up, and then like I look at other people's write-ups and like, oh man, yeah, that sounds so much easier. Like, others where you're like, how did you get there? Yeah.
Hey, but you got there. So
right? Yeah, exactly. And there's no right way of doing it. You're spot on. I love it.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy, you know. And I feel like that is like very relevant for either like it. The other thing too, I think from a content creator myself, and I think a lot of people assume that I'm a lot younger than I am, or I don't have as much experience as I do. So they're like, how did you do all of these things? Like I can list the certifications that I have and it's this long. And someone who's just starting out is comparing themselves to me. But it's like, I took my very first networking class in 2013. So that's almost 10 years ago that I had been doing networking, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of like to point that out to people like, hey, don't I had a 10-year head start.
Right.
So, you know, don't compare yourself to me in that aspect.
But
I do it too. So
I'm going to flip that a little bit because it can be the thief of joy, but it can also be your motivation to keep going. Once you get past that stage of anger and disgruntled depression that, oh, I'm not good enough. Then you're like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And one of the things that I think helps a lot is to try to do what the other person is that you favor. What are they doing? How did they, figuring out how did they do that exact thing is part of getting better, because you're learning it's one thing to know what they did, but it's another thing to understand it completely and actually go through the motions and go through the hours of preparation and recording and all that stuff that's involved. It makes a huge difference. And then you come out of it the other end and there's that sense of accomplishment that, we one step closer. Here we go.
That's spot on. I learned a bunch when I was teaching, by watching like John Hammond and Heath Adams and Alexi Ogman Hackersploit, watching their stuff, so then I could go into class the next day and tell these guys like, here, I've got these slides in the coursework and what I've like learned here, but also like you could try it this way or try it that way or try it the other way, and taking just what they had done. And to what you had said, like, well, you know, sometimes you start with something and you're like, oh man, my stuff is like, it might feel like it's not that great. Go look at like Hackersploit's videos from like 9 years ago. You're gonna be like, oh, okay. Or go look at like John's got some videos hidden out there. They're not all in the same channel from like when he was in high school, and you'll be like, okay, yeah, we all start from somewhere. And I think it's totally
Marcus Brownlee on the YouTube tech reviewer, he's a good one. And not too long ago, he retweeted like, this is the first video I ever did, whatever years ago it was, and you see the difference where he is now from back then. It's hard to believe, but it's a long journey.
Right. And we always put our like best
yeah.
face forward whenever we can. So like once you have a better video, you're like, okay, like, this one's getting pinned, this one's like gonna hide in obscurity. And then when other people come along, they're like, oh man, you look so good. It's like, I didn't always. And it's good if people know that you don't always start out. You rarely start out being good at anything.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Right.
I'm a perfectionist, though.
Yeah, right.
I think a lot of us are. I mean, I consider myself to be that way.
Yeah.
And I get frustrated when I can't get it the way I want it.
I was like cursing all today because I'm like, why is none of this working right? But we made it here and it'll be fine. But yeah, I think that the biggest thing is like cheesy, corny sayings, but like consistency is key. Just like do what you can a little bit every day. And then as someone else pointed out, like when you reflect over a year, that all that time really adds up. So progress and consistency.
Oh yeah.
All right, I think we're about out of time, guys.
Yes.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
See you both at Deadwood.
I'll be there. Yep.
Awesome. Sweet. I'll be there with Kip Boyle and Frank Victory and Neil Bridges if he's feeling all right. And I think Philip Wiley and Zach Hill said they might also stop into the resume reviews. So, yeah. If you are coming to Deadwood and you are available during the resume review time, feel free to register. Put out links on LinkedIn. It's newvillage.org/resumes is a place to register so that we know that you're going to be there, so we can make sure that we have enough people to help support, because
I'm going to drop
in the one-on-one support.
The Deadwood link in the chat too. Might as well do that, huh?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you, guys.
Thanks again, Josh, and everybody who came to hang out with us today. We will be back for another AASLR next week. Until then, killing it.